Hi, I'm Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and today's block is the Maple Star block. This is another block with a lot of pieces in it. This one we have some squares and rectangles, and we have some flying geese units. So we can do a few things that are a little bit different than what we did in the last block. I'm going to start though with some continuous curve. I think that's always a pretty good place to start, and with that I'm going to do some continuous curve within the flying geese unit here, and then around the square here, and stitch in the ditch to get to the next flying geese unit, and then around the square, stitch in the ditch, and just keep going around. And then at this point I'm going to start working on these rectangles, and what I would like to try is something like this. And I'm going to go all the way around in 2 passes to get this complete. So it's kind of a continuous curve, and then we're going to do an angled stitch there, and another curve, stitch in the ditch, and here, stitch in the ditch, and then I'm going to go backwards and I'm going to connect. So we have kind of an hourglass look here. And then for the center we have a pretty good sized square, and when I get to this one, I think I will just, well, I'm going to find my middle point here, and then we're going to do this design here. And then we have the whole block done. So it can be done with one pass without breaking stitching, as long as we stitch in the ditch to get where we need to. So there's one idea. And for another idea, I also want to find the centers of the center square, the centers of the edges, and then also the center of the block. And then let's do a feather. Instead of doing a spin feather like I've done, I'm just going to keep reaching into this point here. So we get this feather done, and do another one. Just gives the feather a little bit different look from the spin feather that I have done several times in the past. There we go. And then for the rest of this, one of the things that I like to do with shapes like this is to do some stitching that kind of changes that shape. So instead of outlining it, I would go from the point of the flying geese to the center of the rectangle and back out. And for this piece here to kind of continue that look, I think what I would do would be come up a little way, go over, down, and up, and then stitch around in the ditch till I got to the next point, and do the same thing. So what I'm doing is creating a little bit of a triangle in here to kind of copy what's going on over here. And you can mark these little squares if you want, or just eye it, kind of like I'm doing here. Whatever you feel comfortable with. And there, your block is done. Now another thing you could do if you don't like this look here is just try something different in there. Like you could do something like the crossed canoes. Stitch in the ditch to get to the next point and come down. something like that. Okay, and then if we want to do something more with an outline type of a stitch, let's go to the flying geese again and let's just outline this and stitch in the ditch, get to the next piece. And then when we get to our square, I'm going to do the same. And then stitch up here. And then you can either go to this piece or you can just keep going. I think I'm just going to go ahead and come on out here. Now blocks that have more pieces can take longer to stitch if you're doing something different in each piece. And this would be a lot of ruler work if you're not comfortable with just eyeballing this. Like if you have trouble keeping your machine on a straight track, if it likes to drift to one side, this would be hard to do without a ruler, but you could use a shorter ruler. You don't have to use the big 12-inch ruler, you could use a shorter one, and that would help. Now for these pieces, instead of outlining those, what I would probably do is I want to do this at an angle, but then I'm going to come in and just repeat it, stitch it in the ditch to get to the next piece. And then for the center, you could do a lot of different things in here. You could just put a crosshatch, a single one, or you could come on back and do a double crosshatch like that in there. Okay, what if you want to do just one big feather in here? How would you do that? There's several ways you could do it, but with this being a fairly good sized block, what I think I would do would be, I would make a circle in here, and we'll do a feather wreath, and I want to give myself a landmark here, and do my inner feathers as small or as large as you want, and then I'm going to come out and do feathers on the outer side. I'm going to try to reach as far into these points as I can get. And again, I'm not doing the background of the blocks because that is going to depend a lot on how I put this quilt top together, on what I'm going to do with those. And I haven't decided that yet. I have not had time to do any quilting the last couple of weeks, and so it's all just been sitting here waiting for me to kind of get my organization going again and get some design work done. But here we go. That's what that would look like with one big feather in it. Another thing we can do that would go fairly fast, do some continuous curve around the piece, and then we'll just do a crosshatch here. Come around, do another continuous curve, crosshatch, continuous curve. Okay, so now when we get here, I am just going to do another crosshatch, stitching my way around, complete the second part of the crosshatch. Now for the center, what I thought I'd do is do a fill in here, and I want to do a swirl fill. And since this is fairly loose, you need to consider how dense you're going to do your fill in here. So I'm going to make this fairly loose because this is not dense quilting out here, but I do like the swirls. So I'm going to see if I can do them fairly large and yet still have a nice look to them. So it won't take very many swirls to fill this up, and yet we'd have kind of a nice look in there, something a little bit different besides all the straight lines. Okay, now I want to kind of combine a few things that we've already done, and this will be more continuous curve. And I like doing continuous curves. It's quick and it's very effective. So I'm going to kind of speed through this. And then I'm also going to do this design. I think I'm going to try, there we go. What I'm trying to do is avoid stitching in the ditch so much. So if I just do, kind of make like a number 7 and then move on to the next and make another number 7, then I don't have to stitch in the ditch as much. But for the center, what I want to do is I want to find the very center of that block. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a big petal like that. And one thing about this design, you can adjust that a little bit, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm going to give myself a couple more registration marks. I want to look, find my center, and then what I want to do is kind of draw a box here. Now my goal is to do this. And then we have that look. A little bit different. Okay, I'm going to do kind of a square and a square effect all the way through. Now to get to my next section, I'm going to go over here to this point so I don't have to stop and start. And I'm using my piecing where these seams come together as my registration points. And here we go. We're done with that. And then I'm going to stitch in the ditch up to here, go across. We can continuous curve or do that, whichever you like. If you want all straight stitching, then you would do the straight stitch. If you want a little variation, then you could do the continuous curve like that. So you have a little bit of variance in there. That's very light quilting, but I think it's pretty effective. So that's about all I have for this design. I hope you found something helpful, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links. And to keep up with my newest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.